Good morning, everybody. Thank you for coming. Before I start, I'd like to introduce myself. My name is Saddam Al-Sadi. I'm here today to talk about the importance of water in food production and how the lack of water will affect food production. My presentation will take around 8 minutes, and if you have any questions, I will be glad to answer them after I finish my presentation. In my presentation, I'm going to look at two main points. First, I will talk about the importance of water in food production. Then I'll be talking about the problems of food production resulted from the lack of water. Before I start my first point, I want you to look carefully at this picture. We can see that the blue line dominates our planet. What does this blue color represent? What does this blue color represent? Water. Everyone knows that this is water, you're right? But we can see that one might think that this abundant water is more than enough to sustain our lives. But guess what? Only 3% of that water is potable and practical for irrigation. So to start my first point, food is important in water is important for food production. Food production is totally dependent on the availability of water for irrigation purposes, since large amounts of water are required to produce food. And that can be clearer by looking at the table showing the approximate amounts of water required to produce 1 kilogram of each product. To produce 1 kilogram of beef, we need 100,000 liters of water and 1,800 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of soybeans, 1,500 liters for 1 kilogram of rice, 750 liters for 1 kilogram of grain, 600 liters for 1 kilogram of potato, 500 liters to produce 1 kilogram of maize. From these values, we can say that water is the main element in food production, and so that the lack of water will have detrimental impacts on our food supply. In Australia, for example, the Deniliquium mill is the largest mill in the southern hemisphere. It used to produce enough grain that would satisfy the daily needs of 20 million people around the world. But Australia was affected by a severe drought, lasted for more than 6 years, reducing its rice production by 98%. This drought has made significant changes in Australia's agricultural heartland. Some rice farmers are abandoning growing rice, which requires large amounts of water, as I mentioned earlier in the last slide, which requires 1,500 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of rice, to grow less water-intensive crops such as grapes, especially in southeastern Australia. And the other farmers have sold their fields and their water rights to those grape growers. And that has reduced the supply of this stable crop. As Australia in the past used to produce 1.7 million tons of rice, but now the production is only 2% of what it used to be when the drought began. This sharp decrease in the production of rice was the main factor of doubling food prices, and has led the main exporters in Australia to restrict exports. And that has affected the other countries that are dependent on imported food and imported rice, such as Haiti, as my friend Musa said, Egypt and Yemen, and causing food deficiency in these countries. So from this point, we can see the lack of water in Australia didn't affect Australia only. It extended to affect the other regions around the world. And these were the effects of the lack of water in Australia's agricultural production. And now we will look at the impacts of water shortages on dairy and agricultural production in Ethiopia. In Ethiopia, large number of farmers depend on animal husbandry to provide them with products such as milk, meat, and eggs. But Ethiopia has experienced a severe drought, which has severely affected this source of food. In 2002, the United Nations Food and Agricultural Organization reported that more than 3 million cattle, cows, and milk cows have died because of this drought, in some areas up to 90% of the total. And this picture can show how devastating the drought was. Show a heap of dead animals. But the most impact of this drought was cattle mortality and poor body conditions, which has resulted in the lack of milk for human consumption, especially for children. And also, livestock plays a significant role in tilling and plowing the land for cultivation. Ethiopians depend on livestock and animal power to cultivate their lands. And 90% of the grain production in Ethiopia depends on livestock, mainly oxen. And the animals death has caused those farmers to cultivate their lands by their hands, which resulted in poor agricultural production. So from that, we can see that the lack of water in Australia has affected its two main sources of food, dairy and agricultural production. To summarize what I have said, water is important in food production. And so less water means less food, higher prices, more starvation, as I said, as we saw in Australia and Ethiopia. Therefore, we should make an efficient use of this water and prevent it from depleting to sustain this crucial source for our future, as it said in the Irish proverb, "You never miss the water till the well has run dry." And these are my references. You can refer to them for more information. And now I'll be glad to receive your questions.
You mentioned when you talk about Australia that farmers change growing rice to grapes. Why did they change that? And
this is a good question. Will make us go back to the table where I mentioned the amounts of water required to produce food. Here we can see rice requires 1,500 liters of water to produce 1 kilogram of rice. But grapes requires only 650 liters to produce 1 kilogram of rice. And also grapes has a special feature, which is it's a perennial crop and can adjust to limited amounts of water.
I had a question, I've forgotten it now, 1 second. Yeah, why do you think that Australia and Ethiopia have suffered such severe drought?
Because the drought lasted for a long time, and my topic was about the effect of the lack of water on food production. So the production of rice in Australia reduced by 98%, and the production now is only 92%. And I mentioned also, it didn't affect only Australia, it affected the whole world, because it reduced the supply of this stable food.
Yeah, sorry. I don't think you understood my question. Why was there a bad drought in the first place? What caused the drought?
Australia is the driest continent in the world. And this is a natural disaster, and the cause of the drought is the climate change, as I found when I did my research about this topic.
Fine. So how could you suggested that we prevent it. How could we prevent?
We can prevent it by, I said, by the efficient use and by developing new ways of irrigation. Like there are many new ways and techniques to use less water for irrigation.
Okay, excellent. Well done.
Thank you.